Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dimers Sports Betting Podcast. I am one of your regular hosts, Dave. We are going to be filming our regular Thursday episode on Friday this week. So I'm just going to film a quick little Thursday night football preview so we can still get out our insights and data and some of the picks that we like for tonight. Greg will be back with me tomorrow when we film our full show. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to run through our game predictions, our same game parlay, and a couple angles that we like to bet on in this game. As we know, it is Chargers versus Vikings. Chargers coming into this game as 3.5 favorites with an over-under of 45. The Dimers model gives the Vikings a 57% probability to cover the 3.5, 52% to go under 45, and a 39% money line probability for the Vikings to upset the Chargers. That is fair odds. You can get just about, let's see, my plus 154 on BetMGM for the Vikings. So just about fair odds if you think there's an upset. I do think that's in play if that's something that you're looking for. We obviously have a very strong probability on the spread, so I'd probably just lean with that rather than chase the fair odds on the upset. These Thursday night football games can get a little wacky, as we know, and both of these teams are coming off some pretty big losses and very much in need of a win to stay above 500. We talked about this game on the Tuesday episode, kind of figured it was a wait and see what the value is on Thursday, and it's pretty much held strong. I think this edge on the Vikings is appropriate. Regardless of the model's value in these spots, I'm more inclined to take the underdog. You're getting them outside the field goal. The under, in theory, makes it easier to cover as the fewer points, technically easier for the dog to stay close. And I do like the under. Both of these teams are really strong defenses, allowing under 200 passing yards per game. As mentioned, it's a short week, so they're both going to be a little bit gassed. Vikings have a lockdown rushing defense in the red zone, which doesn't bode well for a Chargers team that hasn't really been able to get the run game consistently going since Hampton went down. You know, Kamani Vidal had that big game, and then pretty much nothing last week when they were chasing the Colts by 3 scores pretty much the whole game. Both of these teams have a really good red zone rate. Chargers only 50%. Vikings fourth best in the NFL. So it's going to be hard, I think, for some of these guys to score. Granted, the Chargers are allowing significantly more rushing scores on the season, 10 rushing touchdowns compared to just 4 for the Vikings. But if you are looking at any specific angles in this game, we're going to talk through a few of them that are probably worth betting on. One of them being Aaron Jones makes his return to the Vikings, well, tentatively anyway. He's gone from on IR to questionable. The Vikings opened his 21-day practice window. Reports seem to suggest that he's back. He was on IR with a hamstring injury, and as we know, those can be a little nagging. They don't always go away, sometimes linger for a little while. But if he wasn't healthy, they wouldn't be playing him in this game. Jordan Mason's held his own. He's been solid, but nothing special, so it's not like Aaron Jones is coming back to being dethroned. Mason only had 1 game over 60 yards in his absence, 2 games without a target, and as we know, Aaron Jones is a pretty prolific receiving back. 44 receiving yards in his only full game this season. You take a look at our projections, you'll find that Jordan Mason's projected for 60 yards, Aaron Jones for 34, much higher touchdown equity for Jordan Mason at 41 to 28. Aaron Jones projected for 13 receiving yards, and Jordan Mason well under that. So if you're looking at an angle to attack the running backs in this game, maybe Aaron Jones receiving. Obviously, we have a pretty conservative projection of 13 yards, so we're not exactly projecting him to blow the doors off. But, you know, I've talked about it on here before. I like my first quarter props, probably something to look at, maybe 5+, 10+. Receiving yards in the first quarter for Aaron Jones. You know, granted, if he plays and he's healthy. So keep an eye on the game time reports for that. Another angle we can look at, swap over to the Chargers and into the passing game. As we know, this has been a really jumbled passing offense. McConkey took a few games, well, more than a few games to get going. He is slowly emerging, nearly doubled his season output over his past 2 games. However, the caveat would be that his 100-yard game came without Quentin Johnston, and his 15-target funnel last week, came with the Chargers trailing 3 scores very early on. However, Quentin Johnson managed only 2 catches in that game. So even given the pass-heavy game script, he still wasn't emerging as a productive player. Throughout all of this, it's been Keenan Allen, really the most consistent guy, the veteran, chemistry with Justin Herbert, so it's not totally surprising. But he's been far less reliant on spike weeks. All three of these guys are nearly identical for a score tonight. You look at their touchdown projections, 31 for McConkey, 33% for Allen, 35% for Quentin Johnston. So really anybody's game as far as getting into the end zone for a Chargers pass catcher. Kind of an interesting matchup here because the Vikings have a really good passing defense, but last week, well, just 4 days ago, they got absolutely burned by the Eagles, both by Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. Smith had a career high 183 yards, and if you take away his 79-yard bomb, still a 100-yard receiving day, and that was almost all short routes and quick throws underneath. You watch his highlights from that game, had the one big play, I think like a 20-yard cutback, and then other than that, it was quick stuff, and he just racked up the yards on volume. Similarly, A.J. Brown, or oppositely, A.J. Brown had 4 catches for his big day. That's a very Quentin Johnston style game, right? Over 100 yards, 4 catches, high risk, high reward stuff. And I think that's going to make me like McConkey and Allen more here. More likely to see the high volume. The injury and production for Johnston kind of has him trending down over the past couple of weeks, while McConkey's trending up and Allen's more or less stayed the same. Another couple guys worth a look in the first quarter. You can get all 3 of them for 20 plus yards, plus 195 for Ladd, 240 for Allen. Quentin Johnston's the big play guy, so if you're going to target him, I might even look at 30 or 35 plus, get even bigger odds at like plus 400. And, if you're taking that, you just hope they pull some early targets and cash by the second frame. But all of this aside from the fact that another big target for the Chargers has emerged in the passing game, and just a good transition to our next angle, which is the tight end matchups in this game. And it's tight end day on Sunday. It's not tight end week, but we're still going to take a look at these matchups here. Jim Harbaugh has gassed up rookie Oronde Gadsden in pressers, and now we're seeing exactly why. Back-to-back games with 7 catches and 8 targets, 164 yards and a touchdown last week. Both these defenses are pretty good against the tight end. Vikings allow 46.7 receiving yards to the position, just about middle of the pack, but just one tight end has gone over 40 yards, this season against them. That was David Njoku with 67 when he led the Browns as all receivers in Dylan Gabriel's debut in London. Pretty anomalous spot there. Meanwhile, the Chargers are allowing a tight end touchdown in 3 of their last 4 games. TJ Hawkinson is the second most targeted player on this offense. So the tight ends do have a role to play in this game. However, these matchups are not as favorable for them as they usually are. I will say I do like TJ Hawkinson for some yards. We're going to talk about him in our same game parlay. So there is an angle there. But for touchdowns, it's just kind of a stay away for me for both these guys. Crowded offense for the Chargers. Good defense by the Vikings. And kind of funnily enough, Josh Oliver, the second tight end on the Vikings, has the most receiving touchdowns out of anyone. There are 2. So there's not like TJ Hawkinson's getting all the touchdown equity here. It's not like any receiver is getting all the touchdown equity here. It's Josh Oliver randomly getting 2 touchdowns and leading the Vikings receivers across the board. So it's Hawkinson yards for me and not much else for the tight ends in this one, though Sunday is going to be a big tight end day for us, which we'll talk about when we record our full show on Friday. This is also a pretty good transition to the last betting angle I want to talk about in this game, which is the Thursday Night Football touchdown jackpot on FanDuel. We were really close with this last week. We said the tight end matchup was the one to exploit. We were correct. The Steelers scored 4 touchdowns, all of them by tight ends. However, we got a little burned as Darnell Washington scored in the middle of Johnny Smith and Pat Freiermuth, so he did not cash the jackpot. However, the matchup was right, and it's a little less crowded this week. The Steelers do carry 4 tight ends, so that's not something you're going to run into tonight. However, going back to Josh Oliver, I do feel like he's a good mega long shot play here. in a very crowded pool of players. You just have to understand he's got more than one target in one game this year. You're basically closing your eyes and throwing a dart at Josh Oliver and hoping that he scores the first or last touchdown. I can tell you our projection for him will be quite low. I'll look him up here in real time. Like only 8.9% for a touchdown, 1.6% for the first. So absolute dart throw. Granted, he can get the last and cash the jackpot as well, but it's just a lot of players that are going to get a lot of attention, I think, in this game. And you probably want to just move away from the guys that most people are picking. If you're looking for a more conservative play, kind of as mentioned, because of their roles in the offense, it's Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen for me. But for the most part, I'm sticking with those long shot tight end guys, as that's usually where I like to find my potential return of a big bonus bet on the jackpot. I'm more, it's a $5 play. You can go for someone a little riskier and hope that you hit the bonus bet return, which you can ideally convert into more real dollars. So one more thing we're going to do, look at our same game parlay here.
Thursday Night Lotto.
Let's pull this up here. Chargers, Vikings, same game parlay, plus 575 odds on DraftKings. Starting off with TJ Hawkinson, over 34.5 receiving yards. We project him for 38.6 yards on 3.9 receptions. He's the second most targeted player on the Vikings behind Justin Jefferson. Even if he's not racking up crazy yards like he has in his career, he's getting all the looks. He's cleared 34.5 yards in 4 straight games, 5+ targets in each of those games. As mentioned, this Chargers passing defense is strong all around, but they should be prioritizing the deep, talented threats of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, hopefully opening up these shorter routes for Hawkinson. Second leg, Keenan Allen, over 50.5 receiving yards. We project 56.8. Strong chemistry with Justin Herbert since returning to the Chargers, 435 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's cleared 50.5 in 5 of 7 games, 4 of those games over 60. And the Vikings defense just allowed multiple 100-yard receivers versus the Eagles on a short week. Should see steady volume despite the solid opposing pass defense. Take Keenan Allen to clear his line tonight. Jordan Mason, anytime touchdown is our final leg. Dimer's model gives him a 42.4% TD probability at his highest. He's the highest in this game. 4 touchdowns this season, scored in back-to-back games. As mentioned, we'll have to split some work with Aaron Jones if he returns tonight, but Jones will likely be eased in, and Mason still got plenty of work in week 1 when both were healthy. 15 touches. Chargers have a pretty exploitable rushing defense, despite the good red zone defense. 123.6 rushing yards per game and 10 touchdowns on the ground this season. I believe they just gave up 3 to Jonathan Taylor last week. Get this whole parlay, 575 odds on DraftKings. This is what we're riding with tonight. If you want to read a little bit more on each of these legs, there is an article up on site, and that will have all of that data in there for you. All that data is straight from the Dimers props, Dimers projections, which are packaged with Dimers Pro. You can get that for 50% off. Promo code podcast, special promo code just for you listeners that we have here for you guys. That's going to do it for our Thursday Night Football look. We will be back with our full podcast episode on Friday, where we'll deep dive into week 8 with our best bets, touchdown props. Greg and I will have some picks for you guys, look at a couple ladder plays, and of course, we're going to celebrate Tight Ends Day in style. So thank you for watching, and good luck on Thursday Night Football.